What are you looking for in this one? Cowboys coming off an incredible wild card win, but of course the Niners were as well.
Well, yeah, this is the game where it feels like you keep talking about the overreactions to wild card weekend. This is the game that feels like it's most impacted by that because now the assumption is Dallas is back. You know, the Dallas team from last week is the one we're going to get. And if that team plays San Francisco, now you got a real barn burner. You got two really good defenses that can force turnovers and cause problems. And you got two offenses that are going to put up a ton of points and score and make spectacular things happen. It's going to be great. But yeah, but what if that Dallas offense doesn't show up? Like, because it didn't for a while before that.
I've said for a while, I think Dallas's best is really good, right? Their high end is really, really good. And that was the other night, right? You get an effective offense. They scored 5 touchdowns. They have a run game when they don't give it to Zeke that's effective. They have Dak making good decisions. They've got receivers and tight ends who can get open. They've got a good scheme. Defensively, they can rush the passer. Most of their coverage players are pretty good, but they can put together a full effort defensively. If they bring that to the table, this is a really good game, man. It's a really good game. And if you look at the Brock Purdy 49ers, have they been challenged at this level yet?
No.
Not at this level, right? I mean, they not even with winning teams that they've beaten. And it sounds like, because we have to talk about Brock Purdy every week, it sounds like I'm just like waiting to tear him down. But it's fair to say, okay, is this the week, right? Is this the week where it's a little more difficult? He had some jitters last week. He bounced back. He didn't play the greatest game, but that's like the beauty of the Niners system, right? When the quarterback doesn't even play his greatest game, we're still going to score touchdowns. The quarterback's actually going to throw for 3 and rush for another one. But if he plays at the same level this week, is it different against Dallas because this pass rush and just the defense generally is far better than Seattle's?
I mean, I'm just trying to run through numbers quickly and look at like what the best defense Brock Purdy has actually faced from a number of different angles. Certainly in terms of EPA per play, he hasn't faced a top 10 defense yet. I don't think.
Maybe the Bucs, but like the Bucs defense is weird because once they ran into any good offense like the Chiefs or the Niners, they got rolled.
Right. I think it's actually Washington
Cowboys
is probably statistically the best defense he's played. If you look at passer rating against, like the passer rating each team has given up, he hasn't faced a good defense at all. Washington is the best one there at 18th. Pressure rate as a defense, by far the best one he's going to have faced is, or he will face, is this Dallas team. Like nobody else is anywhere near. Again, Washington at 11th. So at the very minimum, we are kicking up in a pretty significant way the defense that he's going to be facing. Like he's going to have gone from borderline top 10 defenses in a couple of different ways to one that is legitimately one of the best in the NFL, certainly at high leverage problem situations, pressure rate, turnovers, those kinds of things. Now, does that make any difference against Kyle Shanahan and his wizardry, or is that actually going to cause some problems?
And Bobby Slowick.
I
mean, so I mentioned last week, right? If you're identifying a weakness on Dallas, it's like, all right, Trayvon Diggs is their best corner. He's their best playmaker. He'll give up some yards and all that stuff. But if you're choosing who you want to attack, it's everyone else. Jaron Kearse played in the slot the other night. They've had Deron Bland play outside and in the slot, but that other cornerback has been the weakness. Shanahan isn't the scheme that's like just attack this corner. But they have all of these playmakers, right? They have their answers to whatever you throw at them. So again, that's where it's like you have confidence in Shanahan and his offense because he's called plays well. Purdy has executed, and then by the way, you got to cover Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. Every week we just list all these guys. So this is just going to be completely different for Dallas's defense this week, where they're not facing the now fired offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, an aging Tom Brady. They're facing the Niners, who are going to figure out a way to get some open receivers here.
Yeah. They obviously, we talked about them facing the playoffs last year. That was a pretty quiet game from Micah Parsons. But then the 49ers were able to keep him off the line of scrimmage for most of that game. Like that was one of those games where he was lined up as a true linebacker, not as an edge rusher, which isn't really the case this year. How Micah Parsons does as a full-time edge rusher deployed against Trent Williams and the rest of that offensive line, I think will be pretty interesting.
Same people are, Parsons doesn't have many sacks the final 6 games of the season, but yeah, it's not about just the sack totals. It's being all over the place and creating havoc and creating pressure. Dallas still has that. Purdy against pressure, man. I mean, that's going to be a big one too. It's not going to be necessarily a blitz-heavy attack from the Cowboys. It's not about blitz recognition. It's about those one-on-one matchups up front. It's going to be awesome. But we've got a lot of the debate with the Defensive Player of the Year. We get this Nick Bosa versus Micah Parsons matchup as well. Whoever wins should just get Defensive Player of the Year, right? Get your vote.
Yeah.
Should get your vote.
Vote's already in.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anything?
It's a regular season award only.
Has anyone attacked you on anything? Has anyone suspected anything?
Suspected?
Yeah. You the one guy?
Oh, I think that's known.
Did you get attacked for that?
I mean, I put my ballot out there, so if anyone looked at the PFF how I voted,
okay, just
it's there.
There's a lot of times it's like, who did the Bobby Wagner thing? Who did this one thing? Like, who voted for Devin White for All-Pro? You know?
Nick Wright had this thing after the All-Pro votes came out where he ranted that there are votes that are bad enough that somebody should automatically lose their vote next year, right? I actually think that's a true statement, but I think...
But somebody would use that against you.
Yes, so that's the thing, right? So he was arguing Mahomes was 49 votes for first-team All-Pro and one that didn't, right? So one guy had somebody else other than Mahomes as a first-team All-Pro. And he was like, that vote is bad enough that that person should be like, okay, you don't vote next year. And I would be that guy for Nick Bosa, right? 49 guys had Nick Bosa as first-team All-Pro, and I didn't because, to me, there's 3 first-team edge rushers that are at that quality, and somebody had to miss out. And when you look through all the various data points, it's almost impossible to split those guys. And the only way you actually found to split them was difficulty of assignment and those kinds of things where Parsons and Myles Garrett both look better than Nick Bosa does, right? Essentially arguing that when you look through the actual assignments based off, is he being blocked by a tight end or a running back? Does that tackle have help? Who was the tackle he went up against? All those kinds of things. When you do that, Nick Bosa looks slightly worse than the other 2 guys. And therefore, his production is actually being inflated by those things, right? So to me, I think you can make the case. Anyway, my point being, I think it's way easier to justify the argument of the one vote that doesn't vote for a dude that 49 other people did than the one guy that thinks that Jonah Williams was an All-Pro. To me, that's the one vote that needs to be asked some questions.
So it's not the one who didn't vote the 50. It's
correct.
It's
the one guy that voted somebody absolutely insane as an All-Pro because some guy thinks that Jonah Williams, who led the league and gave up 12 sacks, was the best left tackle in the NFL this year. That guy needs to have some questions asked about him.
Name names. We got to name
I don't know who it was.
Let's go back to Niners offense and Cowboys defense here really quick.
Sure.
Christian McCaffrey, we've got last year with the Rams, the story was the Rams went all in. They went all in. Got Von Miller, gave up 2 day 2 picks for Von Miller, half a year of Von Miller. Let's play that storyline a little bit here for the Niners. They've given up a ton of draft capital for Christian McCaffrey. And so far, the offense has been spectacular with Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy. We've got confounding variables here.
Shocker.
2 changes. How much of this is a McCaffrey game against those Dallas linebackers? Leighton Vander Esch. Can they keep up Anthony Barr? Get Anthony Barr in space?
It's been a pretty big bounce back year for Leighton Vander Esch.
Has been.
Like he's had such a weird career. He started off, looked like the best linebacker in the draft class, was really good right away, and then absolutely nosedive, dealt with injuries as well. And now it's kind of bounced back to being a really important part of that defense again.
Him and Tremaine Edmonds, 2 guys, they were our 2 favorite guys to debate that year because they were young. Well, one was young.
One was young one was young
in
age terms. The other one was young in playing time terms. Right. And it was a fascinating case
who has
study.
More upside, right? Who's going to be better?
And even now, like however many years later, it's like I don't actually know the answer to that
Still
question.
Don't have the answer.
Right.
But they're still playing. They're in the final 8 here, divisional round, and they're still playing. And they're both having their best years in a while. At least Vander Esch was his rookie year. But that matchup, right? All of the Debo's in the backfield. He's out wide. We talked about on the review show. There were plays where Debo's the running back and McCaffrey's the receiver, and the defense has to just match up, right? And I want to give Dan Quinn a ton of credit for what he's done with this defense, right? He coming from the Seattle scheme where they didn't change a whole lot, and he didn't change a whole lot in Atlanta. He has changed his scheme over the last year and a half plus, almost 2 years now. Played to Micah Parsons' strengths, played to his team's strengths. The biggest thing they're going to do this weekend, I think, is just lining up. Not blowing a gap, not leaving a 68-yard run on the table for McCaffrey like the Seahawks did. lining up and letting your playmakers play. I mean, it's the only way to maybe handle this Niners offense.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers offense is so difficult to stop just because they will stress you every single play simply from an alignment point of view. Like Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle are all in the huddle. A, what personnel group do you even line up with? Like, what are you combating that with? Yeah. And then B, where the hell are they about to line up? Because it could be anywhere. Any of those guys pretty much could line up pretty much anywhere on the offensive formation, and you need to be able to adjust to that within your defensive play call. Like, that's not easy, and you've got to do it, by the way, in like 15 seconds. That's every time they line up. Like Dan Orlovsky had this big thing of after the Miami Dolphins mess up on 4th and 1 where they couldn't get the play call in, right? He had this big thing sort of showing what a play call looked like, right? And how
I have a take on that. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, that calling a play within 40 seconds is not that easy. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, more than you think. When you actually game it out and all the steps involved, it's like a minor miracle to get this done every single play. I would simply make that point that on the defensive side, this is happening as well, right? You have a very short period of time to figure out who's in the huddle, who are we going to match up that with personnel-wise, and how are they going to deploy, and how are we going to match that within a defensive play call that we're working from, and get all that figured out and aligned before they snap the ball.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot to it, man. It does, the way you said it, stresses the defense from an alignment standpoint and all that. My only thing on the Orlovsky thing, I think on his point on 4th and 1, where they thought it was first down, and then like that's a challenge. What I always find funny is when like somebody goes on TV and just reads a football play and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, that's incredible!" It's like, yeah, but like, it's just everybody knows that language. Like, it's not that incredible. Yeah. It's literally the job.
The point
to call the play. Yeah. Your job is to call the play. It's difficult for the viewer at home to call a play. It actually shouldn't be difficult for an offensive coordinator to call a play in time. The 4th and 1 thing is different. They had the whole fourth quarter was a mess for the Dolphins.
The thing I think that he is trying to convey, which I think is a good point, is like when you're sitting on your couch and all you're doing is waiting for the next play to start. 40 seconds is an age, right?
Sure.
When you're actually playing the game, it's amazing how quickly the play clock sneaks up on you, and it's like, oh crap, we got 5 seconds left to snap this. Let's go. Like, I've been in offensive huddles before where, because, at certain levels, I think the ref will sort of give you a shout, 10 seconds, that kind of thing, right? It's like, holy crap, we're already at 10 in the play clock.
Yeah.
Right, we got to get this thing snapped now. That, I think, is the part that is a good point to sort of try and convey to people that haven't been in a huddle, is how quickly 40 seconds can disappear after a play when, maybe some people are celebrating. You've got to move the whole thing. You've got to get the play call. Like, there's a lot that goes into 40 seconds that you're not doing when you're just watching from the couch, right?
No, I get it. I get that, right? I made that point earlier this year, too, when I was talking about Nathaniel Hackett, right, who'd been calling plays forever. And it was like, well, now you have to call plays and manage the game.
Right.
It's fast. It is a fast game. And you want to get to the line so you can see the defense and understand what's happening there as well. So I get that point. But, there's a lot going on that side of the ball. On the other side of the ball, a very good Niners defense going up against a very good Cowboys offense. It looks like Jason Peters is not going to be able to play at left tackle. I assume that puts Tyler Smith back at left tackle. Tyron Smith staying at right tackle. Connor McGovern comes in at guard.
Yes. Are they getting Biadasz back?
Biadasz is back again. Yeah, he was there the other night. So he's at center.
Right.
McGovern will come into guard. But that's another thing. The Dallas has been working with this offensive line reshuffle the entire last few weeks of the season.
Yeah.
It felt like that was a big part of their inconsistency, especially running the ball. They have not been as effective running it, but they were good running it with Tony Pollard the other night. It's been really bad with Zeke.
Yeah. I mean, this has been the story for years now. Like the disparity.
Not at this level, though.
It kind of has, though.
This looks like Zeke looks like Arizona Cardinals Emmitt Smith right now.
The disparity, though, between Pollard's numbers and Zeke's numbers over the last couple of years is insane. Like, it's madness that they are still operating under any kind of equal split.
Yeah, you should get more Tony Pollard involved. To be fair, a lot of the Zeke stuff is in the red zone as well, but even then it's like, does that really matter?
Well, also, not only does...
Only tight. I mean, like, the 1 or 2 yard line, but,
not only
you got stuff didn't get you that touchdown the other day.
That's the thing. Like, not only does that really matter, but the other thing is, like, should that even be the case? Like, if this guy is this ineffective running the ball in general circumstance, why are we giving him the short yardage stuff over Tony Pollard? Like, shouldn't we actually just say maybe Pollard would be better at that as well?
One question I have for Dallas, whether you have Maha or new kicker or whatever it is.
Stop saying Maha.
What's his name?
Maher.
That's Maha.
It's not. It really isn't.
Maha. Do you just go for 2 every single time?
Well, I mean, he's even going to be the kicker.
Yeah, but whoever you have was just on the street a week ago. You trust them for extra points.
We know, but if the kicker isn't Justin Tucker, the chances are he's equally interchangeable if you just dragged him off the couch.
I mean, the 33rd best kicker in the world, you still trust them kicking an extra point, presumably, right? But we've seen the strategy. The Steelers did this when they first moved the extra point back. They're like, we'll just go for 2 every time. They started this before that. They were like, it might be a better strategy to go for 2 over time. Does Dallas get into that world? Maybe.
I mean, only if the guy shows up and shanks the first 2 extra points. Like, I think you're probably going to give him that before you do anything. Since the start of the 2021 season, Zeke Elliott versus Tony Pollard. Zeke is averaging 3.9 yards per attempt. Tony's at 5.3. Zeke is averaging 2.7 yards per attempt after contact. Pollard is at 3.7. Pollard has 10 more explosive runs despite 50 fewer attempts. More than 50 fewer. Oh, God. A lot fewer. What do we got? 60.
Look at you,
150 fewer attempts.
On the fly. Maher.
Everything is a lot better. Everything. He's got double the number of broken tackles per attempt. It's night and day.
Yeah. Get the ball to your playmakers more often. CD Lamb. But one of the biggest plays in that Bucs game, I don't know how much you want to give Mike McCarthy credit, because they went for it on 4th and 3. Was that just because they couldn't kick? Right?
Probably.
Because it's funny, because he stumbled into the right play, right? He stumbled into the right answer. And the thing that happened there, I think they had 3rd and 2, and they got stuffed on 3rd and 2 when they went backwards. And I always talk about this. Like, if you lose yardage on 3rd down, are you less likely to go for it on 4th? The Cowboys went for it on 4th, presumably because they were like, we can't kick. We're not doing that. And they scored a touchdown on it, right? There's so many of these plays that are showing up in the playoffs. The Ravens only made it a game because they were aggressive on 4th down. The Giants won against the Vikings because they were aggressive on 4th down. If there's a Kyle Shanahan weakness, maybe he's not as aggressive in these situations. Mike
definitely.
McCarthy actually has maybe the advantage here. He's going to be more aggressive, and he's going to play the underdog role again. So it's at least 3 out of these 4 matchups, I think the team that's the underdog might also have the coach, not the coach advantage, but they have a coach who's going to play the underdog role and have a chance to pull that upset.
I think there is definitely an argument that Kyle Shanahan is too conservative in those situations. And I think it gets worse when he gets into the postseason. I think Shanahan has been scarred by previous, not even screw-ups, just previous bad results, previous bad outcomes in the postseason and in the biggest situations. Like that Super Bowl 28-3, that's a scar that guy deals with during games. Like when things start to go south, that's repeating in his brain as he's calling plays, as he's deciding, do I go for it? Do I play conservative? Like, what do I do?
As does the guy on the other side calling defense against him, Dan Quinn.
Sure.
Another interesting matchup.
These 2 people are just traumatized by 1 game.
Did you hear the Richard Sherman story with Kev Clark about how Kyle Shanahan basically just broke Dan Quinn's defense?
I mean, yeah.
He just broke the defenses.
Yeah, we saw that game take place. That was the Levine Toilolo up the sideline play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just interesting hearing it from Sherman, who's like, Shanahan and Quinn were together for a couple of years. He's facing that defense every single time. And it's like, all right, when I face them again, I'm going to break it. I'm going to break their rules.
Yeah.
And he did. So that's going to be a fun little matchup here. Shanahan versus Dan Quinn. Like I said, Quinn's defense is not the same as what he was running back in Atlanta.
But it will be interesting to see if Shanahan has enough, like, does he still have enough to break it?
Yeah.
Every now and again, not like every play, not what he did to the Seahawks, but but can he break it enough to put up some points? Now, I mean, again, they faced off in the playoffs last year, and it's not like they put up record-breaking numbers or anything. So
it's such a difficult thing to quantify. Going back to Shanahan again. I mean, a high level, it's like Shanahan offenses are good, but why, right? Like, why can't somebody replicate that? And the answers you always get are he calls plays with a purpose, right? He's He's building to something that's eventually going to break your defense, right? He's also processing all this information, right? He's like, if you play this thing one way, I have an answer for it. And that's why all the offensive coordinators that are getting fired across the league, a lot of them don't have that ability to call plays that build on each other. Joe Thomas calls it telling a story with your play calling. And so that whole side of the ball, Shanahan versus Quinn and everything, is going to just be awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Can Dallas, really quick now, Dak, all the interceptions, everybody's talking about his 15 plays, his 15 interceptions this year. Don't even think he had a turnover-worthy play the other day. We did have a question about the Carlton Davis one in the end zone. He barely got his fingertips on the ball. I don't think he had a chance to intercept it. Dak played a really clean game the other night. Most of the interceptions themselves were very unlucky throughout the year. Dak has also had he's been on the lower end of turnover-worthy play percentage over the last couple of years. Not egregious, but what's going to happen from a turnover standpoint in this one? If Dak throws a couple interceptions, man, the narrative comes right back.
It does. And also, I mean, that's the game. Like, Dak can't have turnovers, I don't think, in this game, because there's no evidence that this 49ers offense is going to get slowed down enough that you have that kind of margin. So Dak needs to have another game like last week. He needs to have a clean game where he adds value, not detracts from it with a couple of mistakes.
Anything else you want to add in this game? What else are we looking for here? So if Tyler Smith moves to left tackle,
mm-hmm.
You've got Nick Bosa going up against – Nick Bosa will flip sides a little bit.
Yep.
Nick Bosa going up against Tyler Smith, the rookie, played some left tackle, left guard, and right tackle Tyron Smith.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and
because neither one's like Tyron should be on the left side, and Tyler Smith should probably have that one full year at guard before moving to tackle.
Right, and Nick Bosa has split time either side of the line, but he's also had games where he identifies which is easier and stays there. You know, and this feels like a game where you would quite quickly determine that you're better off going up against Tyler Smith than you are even a Tyron Smith playing right tackle.
Yeah,
like I would imagine if that's how it breaks down, Bosa spends almost his entire time against the rookie.
Charles Omenihu's number 2 on the team in pressures with 59. Really good season for him. He's long and difficult to block, just like Eric Armstead. Like they just keep bringing in these, really difficult body types to block, plus freaks like Nick Bosa. So that's also a great matchup, right? San Francisco's defensive line against the Cowboys O-line.
Mm-hmm. We've also got the 49ers defense with D'Amico Ryans having like 78 interviews during the week. Kind of preparation to see
Quinn's interviewing too, though. Like both D'Amico Ryans and Dan Quinn are probably head coaches in this cycle.
Yeah,
or they're at least finalists. They're probably going to be head coaches though. And again, the rule's different now. You used to not be able to talk to these coaches until after the playoffs, right? And now they interview in the middle of the playoffs. So I don't know if that is any kind of factor. Even game planning, though, it's like you have so many people helping you game plan. You have so many people helping you prepare for interviews, but having your attention pulled away from the game at all, I don't know if that's a factor here.
No. 49ers have used Jimmy Ward a lot as their slot guy now, which puts him on a collision course with CeeDee Lamb a lot.
Yeah.
Like CeeDee Lamb operates from the slot a lot. That doesn't feel like a matchup that goes particularly well for San Francisco.
I mean, CeeDee Lamb has the advantage pretty much over every slot corner.
Right.
But even prime Chris Harris, who is a pure corner playing in the slot, you don't trust too many slots against.
But for example,
but a former safety like Ward with slot skills like that, could be a challenge.
Like if you're, again, comparing it to last year, like I think the 49ers had K'Wan Williams as a slot corner last year, who's a much more natural and good slot corner than Ward is. So I don't think that went tremendously well for them either, just simply because CeeDee Lamb is good. But if you're looking for sort of mismatches in Dallas's favor, that's one potentially that you can see.